morning. What's going on, my great people in the world? It's your guy, Nicholas Wilcox. It's your other guy to the left of me, Johnny Main. Johnny, say what's up to the great people.
What up? What up? What up? Happy Super Wild Card Weekend on this dry January in the great Northeast as we got a snow squall last night here in the great state of Maine. But good morning to all, and to all a good morning. Me and my man Nicholas Wilcox here today, getting ready to kick some game to you guys. The regular season is over. We don't have 13 games to break down as we do every week because we're in the playoff world. So life is a little bit easier, but obviously DFS is still going on, props, bets, picks, and we're here today to discuss that with you guys. Even though everything did not go as I had anticipated and planned last night with my Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I'm not sure if you want to go too much into that, but
nope.
The old man segment today.
Nope.
That being said, we won't have none of that today. But yeah, look, I mean, quickly, as you all know, Texans beat up on the Chargers. Beat up on the Chargers. And I don't understand how the Chargers went up and lost that game like that. Just Herbert looking like the worst. It was the worst game of this season, I think, in the worst time. And then meanwhile, CJ Stroud starts the game off weird and then really picks it up late. So I don't know, man. Texans were a weird team coming into the season anyway, in terms of how they've been playing all this time. And then now them getting a playoff win, they showed everything that they needed to show. You know what I'm saying? Consistently getting Nico Collins into the game. The Chargers just, like I said, too many turnovers in that ball game for Justin Herbert just put that team out of their misery by themselves. So I think they beat themselves up, in my opinion.
Yeah, it did. That happened. But I think also too, man, it's one of those situations where we talked about it all year long. The Texans came into this season, man, as one of the darlings based off of what they did last year in the playoffs. I think obviously CJ Stroud being a rookie last year, I think people just kind of expected him to take this huge step. Didn't happen from a fantasy perspective, but again, from a real life football standpoint, coaching, D'Amico Ryans, and then offensively, man, I think, Joe Mixon was one of the better finds this year in free agency for teams and even from a fantasy perspective. And he had a really good game. And I think once that offense, when they're able to run the football the way that they're able to run the football, for me, man, it makes them a tough out because they're better than most teams defensively. And from a skill set perspective or from a skill player's position, obviously Nico Collins for me, I've already kind of talked about it, beating the drum for him already as a first-round pick for next year. I think last year we seen this in the playoffs for him whenever he stepped up and kind of got into this status of oh shit, he's legit. He's the real deal. And I think we just seen that yesterday. Again, at home, I posted a stat a little bit earlier in the week, hoping that this would trend towards my Pittsburgh Steelers, but since Super Wild Card Weekend has started, where they've added the additional team, there's only been 2 teams that have actually won on the road in the first week of the playoffs. And I believe that was the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys in different years. So, history just says at this point in time, of the year with this, the home teams are heavily favored and they've came through. So no shock at all, man, for me.
Yeah, they are. And to be honest, it's just again, the Chargers, I thought were a team that would bump that trend as well. But it's again, just for whatever reason, just like I said, dude, I feel like the Chargers really beat themselves up. And
yeah,
all I gotta really say about that. But we're moving on to today's, slate of games. We got 3 of those. We'll also talk about the Monday Night Football matchup as well, which has taken a somewhat uncertain turn in terms of how things were set up. With the whole LA wildfires thing going on out there, affecting many lives and families and stuff like that. So shout out to all 100%. Of those in need in terms of going through a tumultuous situation. So without further ado, going to talk about the first game of the 1 p.m. slate of games, talk about the Broncos going into Buffalo to take on the Bills. Over under right now is 47.5. One of the higher point totals of today. And the Broncos, they're a feel-good story somewhat. They were a team that, had plenty of couple moments, had some cardiac moments down the stretch.
Yeah.
Up the playoff spot for them the last week of the season against some backups against the Chiefs. And they overall for the Broncos come into this matchup where, they're underdog by 8 points coming into a matchup against the Buffalo Bills, who are a team that currently is really playing with house money, so to speak, pretty much all season long. So now it's where the expectations have started to rise. Will we see the same Josh Allen, throughout this upcoming postseason for them for how many games they play? This is a stiff matchup because the Broncos defense has been one of the better teams against the run. They have Patrick Surtain, a shutdown corner. He's probably going to the Pro Bowl. However, how much weight that means these days.
Right.
But I think for the Broncos, they're more of a complete team. Sean Payton coming into this matchup with rookie QB Bo Nix. And Bo Nix has looked really well. Coming down the stretch as well. Even in losses, he's coming look pretty well. But Johnny, what are you saying in terms of this game? The line says that, like we were talking about, the home teams are having a really good advantage historically in general for the postseason and first rounds. But is there opportunities for the Broncos to stay within this matchup, or is it going to be a stomp fest for the Bills?
I think there's a pathway for the Broncos to keep it close. I do like the 8.5, just in terms of like the 2-score aspect. But like one of the things, man, like we've seen this year is like we've seen Josh Allen just go nuclear in certain spots. And for as good as the Broncos have been defensively, I think I may have talked about it last week. Like they've started to find themselves in games that are more that are in shootouts. Let's just call it what it is here over the last month or so. And you mentioned Patrick Surtain. Patrick Surtain is absolutely one of the best corners in the NFL, if not the top corner in the NFL. But then it stops, right? It stops after that. Like with the Broncos. And I think the advantage that the Buffalo Bills have today that it's been like this all year long with them. It's like Khalil Shakir started off the year as essentially the number one wide receiver. They trade for Amari Cooper, who really hasn't done a lot. And the Broncos are one of the worst teams in the NFL at allowing pass catchers that are not number one receivers, essentially to catch the football. So the Broncos have given up 183 yards per game this year just to opposing wide receivers. So obviously I wouldn't put Patrick Surtain in that category for that stat. But I think this game really plays to Josh Allen's strength and him being able to throw the football around the yard. Obviously, like we talked about, like the receivers, Dalton Kincaid's been in and out of the lineup all year long. Oddly enough, Mac Hollins has had his moments. Oddly enough.
Sure has, though.
Yeah, he's had his moments, oddly enough. So I think, like, just for me, like, looking at this game, obviously, like, I like the Buffalo Bills to win this game for sure. I think this game goes over because I do think the Broncos have an ability to be able to score points. And then one of the things, inside of that is now this Denver Bronco backfield has now shifted from Javonte Williams being, the guy to Audric Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin. So that's crazy, right? It's crazy that like we're at that space. But I'm saying all that to say that like I like the over. I'm probably not gonna mess with, the game like as far as like from a point perspective, because I can see a pathway where the Bills they do stomp them out, but I can also see a pathway as well where the Broncos are able to keep this game competitive. So yeah, just give me the over and give me the Bills straight up. And that's like from a game perspective. That's probably like the closest like I will get to it. Is that right there? And then like I'll make a couple of other call outs, and then obviously I'll kick it to you. But like another area, like right, like from a DFS perspective, right, like just kind of talking through that. There's definitely some opportunities with the Denver Broncos and their wide receivers. One of the areas that the Buffalo Bills have not been very good at this year has been in the slot. And I think obviously, you know, with the emergence of Marvin Mims here over the last handful of weeks, which has definitely been awesome to see, with the emergence of him and Devon Vale, like there's definitely some opportunities. You know, my enunciation. There's definitely
I got a problem with those two sometimes.
There's definitely an opportunity there for that. And the Bills have not been very good either as well at allowing catches behind the line of scrimmage. And I think like you're going to see Sean Payton get very creative today and get guys, all those guys involved, you know, even Mr. Franklin as well. So that's why I said, like, I can see a pathway where the Bills are able to, the Broncos are able to keep this game close. And I'll tell you this, man, if the Broncos are able to do this and keep this game close, I think just kind of in the back of my mind, there's definitely some echoes and some sounds about Russ Wilson and the Steelers, and now Sean Payton having a rookie quarterback, being able to get him in this game and being able to produce. So like just a couple call outs from that perspective. And then I'll give it to you. And if we want to talk a little bit of ownership in this game, we can hit on that as well.
Yeah. I'll say this. I think when it comes to like this game in general, it should be a game where Denver is going to easily be in this game or easily out of it. The Bills defense has been solid when it comes to just stopping, but the problem with them is sometimes they do bleed points. They're still middle of the pack when it comes to points per game allowed coming into this matchup. So, and they're still not the best against the run. They're still a bottom 10 team when it comes to rush yards allowed per game. So this is a defense that can bleed yards, can bleed some points. So this could be an opportunity for the Broncos to stay within this game. The only thing I have a question about is if the Broncos offense can still keep up. We all the Bills have that, you know, they go into this mode where they're just driving. They're driving against opponents' teams constantly down the field. We've seen it in constant matchups. Early on in the year, they played the Ravens where that wasn't as like so smooth. But since that game, they've really been a team like that's been on a tear every time they've had the football offensively. Josh Allen has not turned over the ball consistently. And that's the big thing I look for in this matchup is if the Broncos can find a way to get Josh Allen to turn over the football. The last time he had a multiple turnover football game was November the 10th against the Colts. So that's where he threw 2 picks in that game. But in terms of that, like that's the big thing. That's same thing. How I feel about Josh Allen, same thing I'll probably feel about Jalen Hurts when we talk about him, is that both of these quarterbacks have been somewhat more prone to turn over football because their offenses have picked up the slack in terms of their rushing offenses and just flowing more betterly down the field and third down conversion rates. Like this is why like the Bills are a team where I think they could easily take the game and cover the spread. They're at home. You want to make a statement against a rookie QB. It's going to be Sean McDermott looking to take advantage of a rookie quarterback. Like I do like the Bills odds not like cover the over and to overall just make sure that they wrap up this matchup and move on. I believe if they win, well, depending on what happens, seeding wise with, it'll probably be them and the Ravens, right? I think so. I'm not too sure actually.
I'll check it out
for the playoff seedings, but I think when it comes down to it, I just like the overall Bills, like we talked about. I do like them to cover because I do think the Broncos can, without them. I say this now, but it's like the Broncos run game is like so like I can't trust any one of those guys in the backfield, like at all. It just feels like a mush of mess all year long with this whole backfield. That's been my issue with this Broncos team in general because it's like you can't really trust one running back here. It's like they're all split up, but it's all like JV type of guys, JV type of effort here. There's not exactly always one guy that comes out and just like, really, takes over. Like, McLaughlin we've seen a little bit, Javonte we've seen a little bit, but then he finds himself not getting as many touches and usage. It's just all a mess. So, look, I expect the Bills to take care of business, expect them to cover. If they don't do that against the Broncos, in my opinion, I just think the Bills are going to be one of those teams that, like I said, I think the Broncos did, but the biggest matchup I'm looking for is, this Broncos defense against the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen. Like they need a turnover or two to stay within this game in order to have a chance to win. So that's the thing I'll be watching all game today. But I'm taking the Bills and the points, taking that pretty confidently as well. Anything more to add?
No, I'll just call out from the DFS side of the world kind of what that looks like on DraftKings. Right now, highest owned player is Khalil Shakir at almost 40%, followed by James Cook, who's almost at 30%. So those are just a couple call outs just from like the DFS side of the world. But again, just talking back to the the Denver Broncos wide receivers,
the Bronco Bills, all right.
Bronco Bills. I think, I think from the DFS side of the world, I think that's definitely a place I'm going to be looking at this week today, just because like obviously the game script would suggest that the Broncos could be down at some point in time. And again, like just an opportunity for slot wide receivers for the Broncos. And then just another stat to call out real quick, because I know somebody's probably like, man, you haven't even mentioned your boy. Like, why have you not mentioned?
I know.
Yeah, I know you're waiting on it. Why have you not mentioned? Why have you not mentioned him? And one of the reasons why, like, I haven't mentioned him is because just of what the Bills do defensively. They play a lot more zone versus man. And in man, that's where Courtland Sutton has been an absolute dog. Just a quick stat here from the fantasy points side of the world. Versus man coverage this year, Courtland Sutton, wide receiver number 8, compared to zones, wide receiver 48. So just something to think about just from that perspective. And that's my last call out for this game.
Makes sense. Gonna look to mix in the props well instead of waiting towards the end. Resetting the record because we're not in the postseason now. It's a new ball game.
New game.
But I got Knicks over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Knicks has been pretty good when it comes to these type of situations where they're underdogs. He's hit this line when it comes to passing touchdowns. In every game they've been an underdog, he's had 2 passing touchdowns or more. So I love this line, love taking it. The other one I like is Courtland Sutton. 9 of the last 10 games that he's like played in, Sutton has hit this catch line. He's averaged 6 catches on the year in every game he's played by average. So definitely love both of those lines. Lastly, I like Matt Collins for whatever reason. I feel like Matt Collins has been one of those chain movers for the Bills all season long. He's nailed both of these lines in every game he's played as well. On averages. So I like both of these as well. I think he's just one of those moving chains guy after like Khalil Shakir. Dalton Kincaid feels like he's just fading in this offense. So this should be these two ones I definitely like from a props perspective. Next game we're going on to the Packers getting 5 points going to Philadelphia. Take on the Eagles. The over-under 45.5 is a 4:30 game time, start time. So I think what I'll say about both of these teams is it's kind of fitting that both of these teams are playing each other now. I'll just say that because it's like these are two teams that I've talked about for the last 6 weeks that they just continue to run the football. And it's been like treacherous. And for like, in terms of like from a betting side, DFS side, because it's like both of these teams have weaponry when it comes to they're supposed to be throwing the football a little bit more, but by regression, they've just been running the football even more. So would it be very fitting if both of these offenses started throwing the football? Maybe. But but to be honest, I have no idea what to expect. I mean, look, earlier on this the week, we didn't know if either Love or Hurts or even both of them were going to be playing today. So I'm glad that both of them, for the most part, are playing in this matchup. The Packers, I don't know. Let me ask you something. Should the Packers have been playing their starters last week?
I'm gonna say yeah. And the only reason why I'm gonna say yeah is because it was evident, like towards the end of the game, that the mission was to avoid this matchup. So if the mission was to avoid this matchup, then like let's just avoid it altogether. Like don't be on both sides of the coin. Would be my take on it. Injuries are gonna happen, man. For sure. I think like if there's just no and I said this last week, if you are not going to move in rank one way or another, then don't play guys. Like don't play them. But like if there's an opportunity to move based off of what you and your staff like see and like a favorable matchup, if that's the intention, then just go get it, man. Like just go get it. Like I think it's that simple. But it definitely was a really weird game last week with the Packers. Like Jordan Love's out, because he gets dinged up. Then Malik Willis is in, and then oh shit, we're scoreboard watching. Oh, you know what? Actually, like no, like let's warm up and like let's make this happen. So I think there's that, and I think there's also too the other element of this too is right. Like you have the Chicago Bears, right, and I think everybody knows obviously with Caleb Williams and what's there for him as far as like the stigma and all these things. Like it's still an opportunity to say, hey, we're still big bro. We're gonna little bro you. But I think now, like, obviously, the Bears have a little bit of confidence going into the offseason, knowing they finally got that monkey off their back by beating the Packers. So I think there's a lot of layers to this particular situation. But, like, yeah, that's my long-winded way of saying, like, yeah, play him. If you're going to play him. That's it.
Oh, boy. All right. Yeah, I mean, you make sense. It's more like – man, I would rather just be like, hey, look, we're not going to improve. It's not like we were going to get the division crown going out there and hosting a playoff game. We're going to be on the road no matter what. And if we're the Packers, and I just would have been like, you know what? Let me just rest everybody and let me just get ready for. We'll have 2 weeks to get ready for the Eagles versus 1. You know what I'm saying? I would just rather take it from that approach versus like, yeah, like we play the matchups, whatever. But I'd be like, look, I'm not scared to face anybody. Like, like I come from that mentality. I'm not scared to face anybody, win or lose. Like, and I'm not scared to play anybody. Like, from a mentality of if I was a coach, like I'm not afraid to play anybody.
Yeah,
I get 2 weeks for my starters versus like we go out there, we try to win the game. Just like what happened. We go out there, we try to win the game, we lose the game, we lose somebody that's prevalent of our offense, Christian Watson. It's like we're not trying to think about that in a way, but it's also like this happened. So now it's like. We lost our field stretcher now for this game. He tore his ACL. So it's like, right, but not to say what we do now. Now we're in the matchup that we want to avoid the most.
Right. And I think that
one of our key playmakers.
But yeah, but I think that's the thing, right? Is like if they win this game and they avoid this matchup, then I think, okay, now like mission accomplished, right? Like mission accomplished with that. But like I get what you're saying, like not being afraid to play anybody, like you're gonna have to play whoever. But like also too. That's like I know it was just in like one of my history feeds, obviously wild card weekend. There was I can't remember what year it was, but there was a year where Belichick pretty much intentionally avoided playing the Steelers in I think it might have been the wild card or divisional round, based off of a loss, right? So like I think that there is that type of thought process that goes along with it because like man, let's face it, man, the Philadelphia Eagles, man, they're one of the better teams, and like no, like you don't walk into your locker room and say, hey man, like we're trying to avoid like this particular matchup. It's just like, hey, like this is what we would like to have, and like no player will ever come out and say it, no coach will ever come out and say it, but like ultimately like that's what it is. It's the game within the game itself is all about putting yourself in the best position to be successful, and sometimes that comes with juking the system, if you will. And this was just a situation where it blew up in their face, man.
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely right on it. It's just more like, though, it's like, now it's like you have no Christian Watson. Now you're leaning on some of your depth, which you have, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's more like, now you're, again, like I said to you weeks ago, it's like the Packers are now in a situation where it's like, now you're facing a stouted run defense in the Eagles. Now you're going to have to throw the football more with Jordan Love. Now you're going to have to rely on Jaden Reed. Now you're going to have to rely on Tucker Kraft. Like, so it's now the Packers got to, it's one of those situations where it's like if you would have got your passing game going like a few more weeks ago, You know what I'm saying? Now versus like now you're schematically trying to, go against a really good, defense where you're trying to warm up your passing game in a way. It just doesn't spell for good things. So I'm saying, long story short, taking the Eagles into points. I just think the Eagles are too equipped to not be able to take the Packers down in this situation at home. They get Jalen Hurts back after him not having a concussion. But it's just one of those things where I'm not going to say I'll expect a shootout per se, but I'm trying to figure ways in which are the Eagles going to have to come from behind this game. I don't think they will have to. I think the last time I watched the Packers play a serious game against the Vikings, there were one of those situations where they were down 17 points at one time, still running the football. Eventually started throwing the football. But I'm like, for the Packers, you got to start out fast, in my opinion, if you're going to have any shot in this game.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see a very similar concept. And like one of the reasons why is just because like the Eagles have been, really stout versus the pass over the last 10 games. They've only basically only allowed like 176 yards passing over the last 10 games. So they've been smothering people out. And remember, these two teams played earlier on in the season. And when they played earlier on in the season, I'm pretty sure this is the game where Jordan Love actually got hurt. But there were a lot of changes that hadn't happened yet for the Philadelphia Eagles secondary. And like now, like those things have now happened.
Game one.
Yeah. So those things have now happened.
Neutral field, by the way, too.
Yeah, neutral field. Yeah, that's fair. But like the Packers did have a shot to win that game.
Sure did.
Yeah, they had a shot to win that game before Jordan Love did get hurt. But I think like to your point, like I think like just Philadelphia, like this is what they've been ramping up for. And I think, you've seen it last night, like with the Baltimore Ravens and like the acquisitions that were made for them in their run game and their style of offense. And I think like now you're going to see that. I said this at the very beginning of the year. You did all of that with Saquon Barkley during the regular season to make sure Jalen Hurts is now healthy. Jalen Hurts is now healthy. So I think you see him run the football a little bit more today than what he has all year long. Also, too, the Philadelphia Eagles with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert, they've only played in 3 games together all year long. In the 3 games that they played in, they were over 30 points in 2 of those 3 games. So I think this is just too heavy of a lift for the Green Bay Packers here. I mean, there's a couple of other things as well. Like the Packers haven't been really great against the tight end. So this is an opportunity as well for Dallas Goedert to have a pretty good game. And then, there's Saquon Barkley. And, like we could probably spend an additional 25 minutes just talking about how valuable he's been to this Philadelphia offense and all the things that, he does and the mismatches and things like that right there. Like we've seen what it looked like for him playing meaningful games and playing in a winning environment. This man I believe has only played in 1 playoff game his entire career. And now he's getting ready to be on this stage. So I think like, there's another element of Saquon, and he was able to rest last week. I think there's another element of Saquon that's going to be unleashed here during the playoffs for sure. So, yeah, man, like I'm all in on the Eagles with this one. This one smells like underdog. As I'm not talking about the Underdog app. Smells like under. Smells like under, but like we all know with the Philadelphia Eagles, 2 or 3 long Saquon Barkley runs, 2 or 3 huge A.J. Brown catches. And all of a sudden the Philadelphia Eagles the Eagles have thrown up, 30 plus points independently of that, and then as far as from the Packers side of things, Josh Jacobs has been the catalyst for the Packers all year long in the run game. We know how stout Philly is in the run game on the defensive side of things, and obviously offensively how well they are. So I think, to your point, like I think this is a space where now Jordan Love is going to have to throw the football, and I think there's definitely still some injury concerns like with him. He's been gimpy all year long. He's played through a lot of injuries. He got banged up last week. So I like, and then to boot, he finishes. I won't go down this path. He finishes QB 19 on the year for a guy that like we all had so much hope for. From the fantasy side of things. So as far as ownership goes in this game with DraftKings, A.J. Brown, 35%, Saquon Barkley, 35%. Let's call it that. Josh Jacobs, 34%. So those are some of the highest owned players. Obviously, I think we understand why Josh Jacobs will be that high owned. But again, man, it's a game script thing. If this game, starts to get out of hand, I don't know how much we see Josh Jacobs involved in the passing game, but he's obviously been getting the bell cow work for the entire year. But yeah, like I said, I like the Eagles and the points in this one right here because I do think they will be able to beat them by more than 5 points. I'm staying away from the over/under on this game. Yeah, I'm staying away from it, man, because I know, man, this game could end up being 17-10. Could end up being 17-10, or it could be 31-17, or 31-21. Right. So I'm staying away from it because I think there's too many variations of how this game could go. But I do like the Eagles and the points, so for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. That's probably why I would take the under in this situation. I was excited about taking the over at first because I was thinking that Packers, my initial thinking throughout the week was that the Packers can find themselves in a situation where they can get this to the over. But man, Jordan Love coming off the injury, the injured elbow, we have no idea how healthy he is right now. That happened just a week ago. And then, you have Jacobs, who's been really good all year, but it's the Eagles front. You know what I'm saying? There's only so many yards you're probably able to get against them. So then you're going to have to really, in this matchup for the Packers, going to have to take advantage of your play action passes in this game where, the Eagles may sell out on a few plays or two, whatever. Especially if Josh Jacobs is rolling early. So I don't know, but I think I'm going to take the Eagles in the points, like I said earlier. From a DFS side of things, this could be the game where things could go back and forth. In the same sentence, I say that because it's as much as we see these two teams before, it's both these teams love to run the football, but these are still quarterbacks that will take advantage of the play action passes as well. So it's going to be a game where, a sprinkle or two of these players in this matchup that go under-owned, could possibly be the play here as well. The guy I'll probably take in this game, it's either Devontae Smith or Jaden Reed if I'm going to take some guy here, because both of those guys are going to be involved in the passing game. I don't mind A.J. Brown, obviously, because he has a touchdown upside. 7,500, second receiver on the DraftKings slate of things for today's 3-game slate for the Sunday. Makes it's just him, then Evans is first at 7,900. So it becomes just a little bit hairier. Probably just take my chance on Devontae Smith, even though we have Dallas Goedert back in the lineup. But there's a few things, I like in terms of the game, but it's there's also ways where things get very hairy very fast. So that's what that's just what it is. Props wise in this game, I already talked about him. Devontae Smith over 5.5 catches. We all know he's a short area type of receiver, and Devontae Smith has hit this line in 5 of the last 6 home matchups for the Eagles. So definitely like that matchup in terms of the props perspective. Barkley, over 103 rushing yards is probably the line probably went up. I took this line a couple of days ago overall, but with Barkley, we all know 2K, 1,000-yard rusher. I didn't exactly call that, but
no.
It was something in the realm of possibility because of how good this Eagles offensive line has historically been over the last decade. But in terms of how I feel about Barkley, look, for the last 5 home matchups as well, another guy that does well at home, rushing yards. Obviously, at home, Barkley averaged 132 rushing yards per game. Absolutely crazy. Next, I have Jordan Love. Jordan Love, I have him under 19.5 completions. Jordan Love has been under this line in 6 of his last 8 games, believe it or not. And this just goes to how they have not, like I said, been throwing the football enough, in my opinion. Even though they've been down, they still want to run the football when they're down 17 or 14 or whatever. So this goes to my notion that, the completions are going to be on the underside. And like I said, 6 of the last 8 matchups, 6 of the last 8 the Packers have played, Love has been under this line. Another under, Jalen Hurts, under 27.5 pass attempts. I just think that the same thing. Both of these teams are pretty eerily similar. Like these are teams that they're just gonna run the football all the time. The philosophy could change, you know what I'm saying? But I'm just gonna bet on that, Hurts and these guys coming off concussion, they want to keep him clean. So I think under 27.5 pass attempts, I think is a little too high because this is around around the season mark in a way where I've seen his props consistently. And I just think for this game in which I do think that Barkley has an opportunity just to run wild once again. I think that Hurts, he doesn't have to do as much in this matchup to really get the Eagles over the hump. Keep them cool, come off the concussion. You don't want to do anything that's going to put him in harm's way per se. So he has, as far as the pass completions go, he has been under this line in 6 of the last 7 home games as well. So that being said, wait, do we have one more? Nope, I have no more. Do you have anything else for this game?
No, my only other call out was again, man, just about the coverage that teams play. AJ Brown, obviously an absolute man beater dog, which makes sense as to why you would like the Devontae Smith prop for the Packers playing a lot more zone. So I mean, again, that's my only call is that.
Appreciate that. It's a nice little added on, a little sprinkle there. I love it.
I got you.
So it's 9 out of the last 11 games. Hurts has been under this line as well for these pass attempts. So going to the Sunday Night Football matchup, I'm excited for this one. I'm hoping we get a lot of fireworks for the showstopper of tonight. The Commanders getting 3 points going to Tampa Bay. Bucks are getting our 3-point favorite at home. The over-under is 50.5, 8 p.m. start time. The Sunday Night Football matchup on NBC. This is not an advertisement.
I love it.
What do you say to this game, Johnny? What do you expect out of these two teams?
What I expect is, I think what a lot of other people expect is, I expect this game to be a game where there's going to be points scored, right? I think we all are looking at this game as hey, this is the game especially from a fantasy perspective, right? DFS. You're all right, this is where this is going to go. There's going to be a lot of points scored. Again, another game that we get a rematch of from earlier on in the years. The Bucks did play the Commanders earlier on in the year. So ironically enough, we have 2 games on the slate today where teams have already faced each other. So with that, I think you have this transformation happening right in front of our eyes. And it's excuse me, and it's really, really dope to see. You're seeing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers transform into this youth movement, if you will. Now with obviously, they have Baker Mayfield, obviously leading the way, one of the best values all year long, in every aspect, on field, DFS, season long, in the locker room, right? You have that. And then you also have Bucky Irving, who is now emerged as the number 1 running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then you also have our guy, I got JM. I can just call him JM, man. That's kind of like me. JM, Jalen McMillan, who's, just been unbelievable coming down the stretch here over the last few weeks. So that's definitely been awesome to see. But overall, I think the more interesting piece is what happens now with the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels, because we have this rookie quarterback, great rookie quarterback. He's here now, and rookie quarterbacks have typically not fared very well in the playoffs. Just throughout history, there's only been a handful of rookies to go in and get wins. I think just a couple right off the top: C.J. Stroud, Big Ben, just a couple of names that really jump out as far as QBs that have that kind of clout that have been able to do significant things. Although Stroud really hasn't done anything yet, but he did win a playoff game as a rookie. So I think that'll be interesting to see for me, just how this goes. But I think everybody likes the over in this game. And then just from a lot of the matchup perspectives, right? Mike Williams hitting that 1,000-yard mark last week, which was definitely awesome to see. But somebody, Mike Clay, had actually posted this on Twitter. And I think this is just a great call. Mike Evans versus everyone else in the entire NFL, 17, points per game in relation to fantasy. Versus the Saints, aka Marshawn Lattimore, 9.2 points. And I think from 2017 through 2024, Mike Evans has only had one 100-yard game against Marshawn Lattimore. And this is one of the reasons why the Commanders brought this guy in, right, was for these type of moments. Obviously not knowing definitively it was going to be Mike Evans, but like we get to watch this again, like round 17, I guess, if you will, in this instance. So that'll be fun to see for sure, man. But like overall, like I said, for me, if I have to pick a team, I'm obviously going to pick the Buccaneers just because I think like they still have guys that have Super Bowl pedigree. They still have guys that have, been in this space before, where you're looking at the Commanders team who's very young. A lot of these guys, first playoff games, that kind of nature, right? So I think like that's one of the main reasons why like I do like them. From a DFS side of things. OZ starting to really make an impact as the number 2 wide receiver. He's ran 61% or more of Washington's pass plays in 3 straight games. So I think that really makes him, without a shadow of a doubt, the number 2 wide receiver for this team, with a great value in DFS from a pricing standpoint, in a game that has a lot of shootout potential. And people just aren't necessarily getting there because I think they still just kind of think of him as just a piece and not somebody who is there and going to be consistent. And then Kate Otten, I think Kate Otten should be back this week. However, Washington's been really good against the tight end. So that's not like a play that like I would necessarily recommend. But Bucky Irving is really is the belle of the ball here for me in this game. Because if you're in a game like this right here and there's going to be a lot of points, you got to think, he's going to have some opportunities when you get inside the red zone. So I like that. And then as far as the game straight up, like I said, give me the over because I just think Baker Mayfield just wills this team to a win no matter what. And I love watching him play football. And I really even love watching him play football even more now since he's not wearing a Cleveland Browns jersey. It's great to watch him, to play. It's hard not to root for him, man. But like Jay Daniels will be back in this stage and in this setting again. But I just don't think it's going to be this week where they get the dub.
Yeah, I've been back and forth on this all week. For as Bucks are getting a little bit more healthier in this matchup, Antoine Winfield's back, Jr. For them, that's huge. They are in terms of the Bucks, like they get, they get a matchup where, the Washington Commanders still defensively are still not a team where they're coming, into a matchup where they're so prevalent on getting to the quarterback, so from a pressure rate. So there are some things where it feels like it's going the Bucks' way. Bucks, finished 6-1 the last 7 games of the season. Like for as little as people thought they were going to lose that game with the Saints.
man, bro. They got scared straight. Maybe they're scared straight now,
Maybe they are. Oh man, yo. Week 1, I know the Bucks beat them, but I kind of want to throw that game out the window because any game 1s is like not really prevalent until they not a meeting again. For some reason, man, I'm just gonna take the Commanders. I kind of really dig. It's gonna be all on Daniels per se. Yeah. But I think in terms of how they have played, they've been a team that I like both these teams as well, by the way. Yeah. Like I've been a Baker fan for quite some time. Like we've talked about this on the TVQ Sports Pod a ton, in which people were like, no, not on Baker. I'm like, okay, it's fine. Like, it is what it is. I just think at some point, he's in Tampa Bay. I said it before his breakout. I was like, he's going to be in Tampa Bay with some of the best weapons he's ever had in his career. Let's see what happens. And since then, two seasons of him now leading the most passing touchdowns in the league combined is Baker Mayfield. So hey, now he has no Chris Godwin. But I will say that Baker's come a long way. I'm happy to see that because it's like, again, like I like when it's just like the Darnold situation. You know what I'm saying? Like even Geno Smith from a year or two ago. It's like you like seeing guys bounce back after them having not have the best start to their careers. Like you just love seeing the underdog story. But I will say that, Jay Daniels has been just a guy that has been kicking it up. Like you've just seen how he's overall consistently, gotten better from a passing perspective as well. But give me the Commanders. Give me the over. So I want to see an over. I want to see a gamble. So this is the best opportunity to do so. But the Bucs coming in, they they're going to blitz them. Todd Bowles coming into the matchup. You know what I'm saying? They're third highest in blitz rate coming into the year. So that's going to be favorable for Daniel because I think he'll be able to take advantage of that, not only through the air, but through his legs. So I know rookie QB and stuff like that also is here. So advantage for the Bucs here as well. I'm just still in the Commanders. I think they've played with too much swag this year to not have an opportunity to at least win this game. So if anything else, maybe they'll cover the 3, but I think they'll have an opportunity for the money line as well. Anything more before I went over the prop?
Jaden Daniels versus the Blitz this year, 90.4 QB rating. So you can see why you feel that way.
Thanks. Appreciate that. The first one I'll get to is Daniels over 8.5 rushing attempts, and the over in the rushing yards, 48.5. Look, Daniels has done, like you said, building against the blitz, and I think there's going to be times where when you're playing blitz, you're going to most likely be playing. Sometimes you'll be playing zone blitzes, but you're also going to be playing. Sometimes it's going to be bringing the house. You're going to be playing man to man. I think that's where, again, Daniels can find himself an opportunity to take advantage of this overall. He's done at least. He's had at least a 15-yard run or more in the last 16 games alone. So in terms of that, kind of like that when it comes to that. McMillan scoring a touchdown. My goodness, he's been a touchdown machine.
Yep.
He's been a touchdown machine. 5 straight games of at least 50 yards for McMillan, but he's had 7 touchdowns in that span. Why try to flame out the flame? Why try to put water on the flame there? That was a bad joke. But
I was like, what just happened there?
That was a bad joke. Why try to put waters on his flame, basically? Going McMillan score a touchdown here. It's plus 165. That's really good value, by the way, for a guy that's had a nose for the end zone constantly. Bucky Irving over 108 rushing receiving yards. Like he's obviously he's been a hot commodity. Bucky Irving has. He'll be. Side note question: where are you drafting Bucky Irving next year? Let's give people a sneak peek into that.
I think he's probably going to end up falling into. I think what's going to happen is I think when we start to do best ball drafts, like the degenerates that we are right after the Super Bowl, he'll probably. My best guess is that he'll probably be landing around the second or third round to start off, and I think probably his value will probably end up being early second round or back in first round value potentially, because I think everybody's going to kind of flock back to running backs next year after seeing
they are.
Yeah, after seeing what everything that's happened this year with running backs. So I think not to completely derail like this segment, but like I think like obviously you ask, I'm going to go on my old man tangent.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, right. Like you have, and like you can obviously help me fill in any gaps here, right?
Yeah.
You have Saquon, you have Derrick Henry,
yep.
You have Brees, you have Bijan, and
Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs, you have him, right? Like you have like those guys, and then obviously depending on what happens with Ashton from depending on what happens with him, depending on his landing spot, like you have that, right? Like you have Chase Brown as well. So I just think like there's a lot, and that's not even talking about some of the old heads at running back Kyron Williams, like we have to talk about him as well. Like he could potentially be back in that mix. So I just think like it gets really muddy like there, but I expect to see him at like in that round 3 space. And then like, we're going to kind of put some steam behind it and then he's going to get to the second and be somewhere in the second round, potentially even making an argument to be a back end first round pick would be my thought on where he ends up landing.
Yeah. So that makes a ton of sense. The Gentry side is gonna be interesting. The Gentry side is gonna be so interesting. Where he
and then you got, and then like again, like people like we're not even. I didn't even mention your boy Devon Achane, Jonathan Taylor, right?
But,
right. But like again, so I just think like, so now just kind of being able to talk through that, I'm just gonna land on the spot. Second, third round is where I think you'll see him. Obviously,
that's why I was thinking about Bucky Irving for the moment. Like, but my goodness, like sometimes even the playoffs drives people's value.
Yes,
because it's going to be the last team they see, so type of thing. So, but yeah, Bucky Irving, he's gotten 4 of the last 5 games he's had over this line in general for just rushing purposes. Washington has allowed this line. In 3 of the last 3 games they played, a running back that's gotten 17 or more rush attempts. So, man, like I do expect a Bucky Irving game.
Yeah.
And Mike Evans is gonna be the guy that this could be, this could be a spot where I see some people on the under on this, but I love the over on this. The reason why is because I just think Mike Evans is that dude, first of all. Second of all, he's playing as Marshawn Lattimore. So, yes, there's a checkered history between the two. Clearly, where Lattimore has had his numbers sometimes, Evans has had his numbers sometimes in the past. But I'm looking at terms of how not only has Evans been a dog this season, but it's overall how, schematically, the Bucs are going to look to get Mike Evans the football, no matter if it's slot, no matter if it's out wide. I do think in terms of how they've utilized him, they're going to find a way to get Mike Evans the football, whether Lattimore's on him or not. So I do like the over in a game where I expect fireworks. I expect both of these teams to go back and forth. Mike Evans, Bucky Irving, they're going to be huge parts of that as well. So I like all of this in terms of Mike Evans going on the over. Because although Lattimore has locked him up in past, I do think Mike Evans can get over on him. New team for Lattimore, so to speak. It's not the same Saints. So
yeah, that's right. That's right.
We'll just see what happens.
Yeah,
we'll just see what happens. Anything more before we go over to the last game?
Nope. Other than what you just talked about, the scheme and all that happy stuff. 3 times out of the 17 matchups, he's hit 70. He's hit the 70. So 2 times out of the 17 for that right there. So I think like you mentioned, like it'll be interesting to see, but one of the things like I do just want to call out, and I'll shut up after this, is I think you've seen it a little bit to the detriment last week of this team when, they try to force feed Mike Evans the ball. And maybe
that's true.
And like, hey, like it's a yardage prop, and Mike Evans has been known to get a lot of yards in chunks. So it's not like we're looking at this from a reception standpoint. I can see how it could happen. But again, we will not know until they kick off. So I'll leave you this prop. You can have this one. You can have
it. Thanks. So when it wins, I'll let you know.
Oh, well, actually, I'll call it out too. I don't know. I didn't call it out, but ownership perspective from this game. Heavy
Bucky Irving.
Heavy Bucky Irving, almost 60%. Followed by Mike Evans and Scary Terry. And the guy, again, man, OZ, 26% ownership, and Jalen McMillan coming in at 20%. So obviously, I'm going to be on the Jalen McMillan train when it comes to ownership. So get Jalen McMillan in your lineup. I'm telling you to do that right now.
He's been hot, yo. So he's just been hot. Like, literally. It's scolding hot. Like, why wouldn't you get him in your lineup? 5,200, right? On DraftKings?
Yeah.
Like, get him in your lineup. It's just gonna be like, because there's like no tight end like big time value today. There's there's not like a big like pay up spot for tight end on the 3-game slate on DraftKings. Like, I'm not sure what the FanDuel side things for the Monday. I'm not sure if the Monday's in that as well for the slate or what, but it's just overall like, man, like we could go a lot of different ways in this type of slate of games. So go what you got. That's why I tell people what you got. Vikings at the Rams, but in Arizona. This is now a neutral game site game. So I guess this changes some things for me in a way, but it's still a spot that I'm like still skeptical about for both teams. Vikings in general, like they've been a team that has been a little bit on the schneid lately when it comes to just performance. So again, like there's still like the overall Vegas value, because this was like a +1.5 for the Vikings until this switch now. Now the Vikings are getting some points on the in a neutral game cited against the Rams. So what I feel about this game is that these two teams played each other earlier on. Or man, that game was ugly. That game was ugly because like the referees were so freaking ugly. Like they missed like a huge penalty call on Darnold getting his face mask.
Yeah.
And no one called. That was like the biggest gripe I probably saw all year long. Where I was like, yo, really? How'd you miss that on the QB? Yeah. So yeah, that was that. But
and Sam Darnold got a big head too. So it's really
it's like I don't know how you missed that, but overall we know the Rams won that game. But it remains to be seen how things will definitely switch up this time around. Said it earlier in the week where Stafford is a very, very good quarterback against the blitz. He is top 3 QB overall against the blitz. So that's going to be something I'm going to be watching for, because will the Vikings kind of tail back some of their blitz rate because they're the number 1 blitz team in the NFL? Will they coke that back a little bit to try to take advantage of Stafford? And then the other question in this matchup is Cooper Kupp, man. Like, where's Cooper Kupp been?
Here's my Jim Halpert.
He's just been missing. Like, I just don't understand like why they haven't, the last 3 games in a way, like, last couple games. But it's just he hasn't had like one of those bigger performance games since early in December against the Bills game, where that game was also a really good one. But we haven't really seen Cooper Kupp the last couple of games. Like, I feel like he's going to save his best performances for this matchup, but it's still a little skeptical. One could hope is that, that's going to happen, but I don't know, man. I think for me, where do I stand on Darnold at this point in time? Because it's like, it's just Darnold had looked so good, and then now the last couple games, in my opinion, he ain't looked so good. But it's still a KOC offense, right? You
already know who's coming, man.
Still a KOC offense, right?
Yeah.
Like, the Rams defense I would say the Rams defense is the worst defense out of all teams in this current NFL playoff format right now. In terms of metrics. So I said Rams earlier on in the year. I'm sticking with it. Sticking with the Rams. Now they're getting plus points. I'm taking the Rams because I think I'm going to trust McVay. I'm going to trust this offense. Excuse me, a little bit more. In terms of their weaponry, I'm just going to trust it just a little bit more. I know the Vikings have a very potent offense as well. So, but I'm just going to trust the experience factor just a little bit more in this matchup.
All right. So obviously, man, like Steelers are out. Obviously,
yep.
With them,
come join me on the couch here, buddy.
Yeah.
Come on over. What I tell you several weeks ago? Yeah, told you still. Yeah, come on over here, buddy.
Hey,
have a beer. What do you want to cry about?
Yeah, no, I think Kyle Brandt nailed it on NFL Network this morning when he was like, there's 25 other teams in the NFL that would be happy with getting to the playoffs every year. And the other handful, that's not acceptable. Sure. So I'm glad to know that you are one of those 25. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't care about making the playoffs and getting first round exited. No.
Right.
Actually, that would be worse.
You have way lower expectations being a Jet fan. I understand.
I don't actually, but you're just trying to make yourself feel good, but it's okay. It's okay.
So for me, man, I think I'm definitely still gonna ride with the Vikings, man. Like, this has been one of my favorite stories all year long. I was super skeptical in the offseason about the Vikings and their quarterback situation and Justin Jefferson. Probably one of the more vocal people, just in general, just about this offense. And so I'm glad that this has happened for Sam Darnold, as we were talking about earlier. Some of these quarterbacks that have had the opportunity to bounce back and, show like, hey, man, like, I was, a top 3 pick, a top 5 pick, or one of the second quarterback to be taken in the draft, in Geno Smith, right? I think like it's dope to see that with these guys. And yeah, like the Rams are one of the worst defenses in the playoffs metrically, but also too, the Vikings have one of the worst offensive lines in the playoffs. And the Rams have a couple of really good pass rushers who created havoc for the Vikings the last time that they played. Yes, absolutely. FSU. I'm hoping that the Vikings win for sure. And again, like this, with this being that in a neutral. Because, man, like I said, like I just at this point, the teams that are left, I've been riding with the Minnesota Vikings, and just it's been fun to watch. I guess it would be the best way for me to describe it. It's fun for me to watch. And obviously nobody wants to see the Kansas City Chiefs win, another Super Bowl unless you're a Chiefs fan, obviously. And the Bills, it is what it is. It would be a cold day in hell before I ever rooted for the Baltimore Ravens for anything in life. So I'd say either like the Vikings or the Eagles for me. The Eagles are my favorite, kind of spoiler alert in the NFC, but the Vikings, I just like them, man. I like Justin Jefferson. I like seeing what this does. I like Jordan Addison obviously had some offseason issues. I think we forget too, like, they had some things that they had to deal with. I think one of their players passed away. One of their rookies passed away earlier on in training camp. And then, just to see guys like Brian Flores, obviously working himself like into another position for a potential head coaching job as well. And just Kevin O'Connell fixing quarterbacks, man. Like, I didn't even talk about this last week, right? But like, think about like what he did, like with Joshua Dobbs, like elevated him and had him in a really good spot. The Vikings were in a playoff spot last year, when Kirk Cousins went down, right? And like obviously, like best thing ever for Kirk Cousins. So I think you're just seeing like a reoccurring theme here with him and quarterbacks, and like for me, like coaching and being able to bring up players that like people have written off or just didn't believe in or whatever the case may be. He's just done an outstanding job. I know I'm glazing him right now, but like it is what it is, man. So all of that being said, TJ Hawkinson is that's a place like I want to start at. The Rams have actually not been very good against the tight end, and TJ Hawkinson, I don't believe he was playing in that matchup earlier on in the year in the Thursday night game. So I think that's something now that is a little bit of a difference maker for the Vikings on this offense. So I like that. And then with the Rams, man, like Puka Nacua, I'll call that out. Like he's somebody that
Nacua.
Yeah. It's like I think now, like being able to look at him now, at least from my view, right? Being able to look at him now and not just be like, oh my God, man, how did somebody get so lucky or fluky to pick him up? And I know you were on him before all that. I know. But like just I think like for me in my fantasy brain, to look at a player outside, like just being real, like for me to look at a player outside of like a waiver wire piece, right? Like I preached it all year long on the show is patience, right? Patience. And like being patient and seeing this now and seeing, him get hurt, come back, and the first game he came back just was an absolute dog. I'm like, okay, like I'm in on this guy now. For sure, because patience and consistency are two of the biggest aspects, in my opinion, of fantasy football. And I have been able to demonstrate both of those things when viewing guys like Puka Nacua viewing guys like Kevin O'Connell now, like in this Vikings offense, right? I wasn't wrong about Aaron Jones. He's been dinged up all year long. Running back 22, I think is like what he ended up finishing. But like I say all that just to say, like I said, like I think TJ Hawkinson and his presence will make a difference in this game. Sam Darnold's got to get the ball out quick. He's got to get the ball out quick. And I think that's probably something I'm going to be curious to see what they scheme up for the Vikings, what Kevin O'Connell schemes up for them. Maybe they come out today and maybe try to establish the run, maybe to kind of give him a little bit of breathing room and kind of just say, like, reset things in terms of like, hey, okay, like we're not going to put all of this on you just to go out here and sling it around the yard. Hey, like, let's set you up and intentionally put you in the correct positions, down and distance, managing the sticks. So like that's one reason why. And then the last thing for me, man, is like I think there's always an element of games that like we talk about sometimes, but like we kind of forget about. But just the familiarity with Sean McVay and Kevin O'Connell, that familiarity there as well also kind of breeds for this like really intense chess match. You know, when you're sitting in rooms with guys and you're giving them everything that like you have about like your schemes and your insights and your strategy in terms of like the offenses and like why you do the things that you do. And then, said coach being able to take that same piece, right, and then make it his own, or just be able to know that like, all right, this is what they're thinking about. I think the game within the game here for this particular game is going to be very critical. And so I think like if Kevin O'Connell is able to come out of this game with a win, I think like, it's just going to continue to highlight the fact of what an amazing job he's done this year in the toughest division in all of football that we can ever recall, other than the AFC North a few years ago when there were 3 additional teams that got in the playoffs. So, and then plus too, man, like the LA Rams fans, man, like they don't travel well. Like, so I think this, you mentioned it, like a neutral site is probably going to end up being more likely than not. It's going to end up being more of a Vikings game. Right. And then Matt Stafford, like we're getting towards the end of it. We're getting towards the end of it for him. And like he's gutsy. And this Rams team, like, they're not bad. They're not bad, man. And like all they need is just, a little bit of glimmer of hope, man. So I know we talked about the Sunday night game, but like this is probably the game for me that I'm the most enticed and intrigued by.
That's fair. I mean, it was between both of those, honestly. Like, I just think this game could probably go south either way. So, that's where I'm like, all right, well, the Rams and Stafford are a little bit older, right? That could go south. Yeah. And the Vikings can find themselves in a situation where they're getting the same situation can happen against Detroit, where they're getting manned up, they're getting blitzed upon, like that can happen again too. But I will say from a props perspective, I love TJ Hawkinson here. Over 44.5 reception yards. He had in the Sunday Night Football game against Detroit where they lost, he was heavily getting targeted. He had 8 targets in that game. It was the second highest mark of the season, for him overall. And when it came to team-wise, he was only behind Jefferson, obviously, who I love for over the 6.5 catches as well. Because Justin Jefferson is that guy. He's that dude. And like is going to have any opportunity to open things up, he's going to hit this mark easily. You can sprinkle the anytime touchdown on him as well. I think that's definitely there. But in terms of going back to Hawkinson, the Rams defensively, again, like I said, they're the worst defense by metrics by all the playoff teams that made it. But in terms of this analysis, Rams are allowing the 3rd most targets and the 2nd most receptions to tight ends this season. So definitely love Hawkinson there for sure. Jefferson, we just got to keep on playing him because Jefferson is that dude. He could blow off the top at any point of the overall slate game. So, So, any thoughts? Rest of this thing? So you got the Vikings, you got the points on them too. Just the money line. The over, the under.
I'll definitely take the over, and I'll ride with the Vikings. And I don't know why I'm continuing to like pump you up and prop you up for these props here, but it just seems to just be working really good today in a space where like I probably shouldn't be as good and as happy as I am. But yeah, just
I'm always surprised by you, honestly, in some ways. I figured you come in here a little bit more grumpier than you are today. You're not.
No, No,
just so interesting because
you know what?
Steelers.
You know why? You know why I'm
I'm
not that grumpy today?
Are you expected to lose? Like, what's going
on
here?
I'm not that grumpy today because I have my laptop. And I'm grateful for that, right? I'm grateful for that. And I'm holding in all of the anger that I have, and I'm going to put that out into the intermediate social webs tomorrow about my entire rant about the Pittsburgh Steelers and their season. It's going to happen. Like, I've been thinking about it. I was like, yep, that's definitely going to happen. So I'm not even emotionally going there today. Not even doing it. But my last call was just, you were talking about Jefferson just being him.
Oh my goodness, Joe.
In week 8, Jefferson could have easily surpassed 150 yards. So I just think again, like you're right on the money. I just don't know about the receptions piece. I like the yards a little bit more, but I think obviously I know exactly where you're at, like where your headspace is at. In order for the Minnesota Vikings to win, he is going to have the ball at minimum 7+ times. So I can definitely understand that thought for sure, man. So I dig it.
It's just it's playoff time. So look, man, the stars are coming out, right? Like, I just think that in terms of them winning this game, Justin Jefferson had to get the ball a ton. Like, the other guys got to get the ball as well. Hawkinson, Addison's, and even your guy Jalen Naylor. You know what I'm saying? Like,
don't sleep on him.
I didn't. I mentioned him.
Oh my god!
I mentioned him.
Oh my god!
I got one more additional prop that I probably should have put in earlier, but I just put in not too long ago, and that's James Cook over 56.5 rush yards. The Broncos do boast, again, the second best run defense. But again, James Cook is overall, again, one of the higher, favorited, scripts in the, overall today. When it comes to that, the Broncos, they are second in lowest yards per carry in the league. But again, in a game in which I think James Cook has shocked us all year long, I think he is overall a guy that I'm not going to shy away from in a matchup where they have to run the football to keep the lead and to keep the Denver Broncos on their toes. The Broncos, they are 2-6 in games where they've allowed over 100 rush yards or more. So that's where James Cook, Josh Allen come into play. So this is why I like the 56.5 over rush yards for James Cook. And that's a very late addition. But other than that, what do you got for our final thoughts? The lock of the slate here. Give me a guy or two that you're locking into your DFS slate for this slate of games. I'm actually going to start this one. I'm going for broke. I'm going to start Jaden Daniels. I'm going to tell everybody, lock in Jaden Daniels. He's going to be a guy where the ownership is at a point where I think everyone's still going to go try to play Josh Allen because of the dual, because he's a dual threat as well. But I will say that besides Josh Allen, him being pretty high owned as well, I take that back. Jaden Daniels, last time I checked, Jaden Daniels wasn't this high. I see him 20% now. Projected ownership. So there goes that take. There goes that take. Start Jaden Daniels anyway. The reason why is because I'll spin this narrative. It's because it's the last game of the slate on DraftKings, where it's like Josh Allen, I still expect him to do well today, but will he have a Josh Allen ceiling game today? I don't know about that. It's in the cards, but for a DFS breaking slate, I don't know. It could be one of those games where he just gets projection, right? Just going to hit his projection. Just going to barely get, for 8,200, we need Josh Allen to do, 27? 27, right? 28? Yeah. 28.7 for 3.5x. Ideally, you're going to want Josh Allen to get 35 for you. So 35 is still in the range of outcomes too, but I'm just going to go with Jaden Daniels because I do think that, we need 26 from Jaden Daniels, hit 3.5. And I think he could easily hit 30. He's done that in matchups where he's been in spots where he's going to get paced over. So before week 18, because, week 18 doesn't really matter. He's done that in back-to-back games, 35 points or more. That was against Atlanta, against Philly. So I do think Jane Daniels is a guy that ownership-wise, it seems like he's going to get there, but sometimes ownership's definitely changed before lock. So if I get Jane Daniels, he's the highest owned. I'm okay with that 20%. I think that's something that's a pretty good shock play still to me versus the rest of the field. The only other thing I would say if you're getting contrarian in the same game is Baker Mayfield. Because Baker Mayfield is going to, 6,800. Like, he's a guy that's going to keep on airing the football as well. So I do think both of those guys, I'm just targeting that last slate of that last game of the slate because I want to know what points I need to make up versus the points that, let's just say Josh Allen goes out and gets 27, 28, whatever. So, yes, Josh, we somewhat expect that for Josh Allen. But Baker Mayfield or Daniels, whatever, all of a sudden, if I miss out on Josh Allen's 40-point performance, so be it. You know what I'm saying? But I want to be a guy that I want to chase points at the end of the slate or at least have a spot or two where I'm feeling good about getting myself in a winning position to not only hit me in cash, but beyond. So,
yeah. Baker Mayfield is the play. That's my play on DraftKings. Actually, no, I lied. Actually, no, it's actually
you lied.
Yeah, I lied. It's Josh Allen.
Of course it is.
Yeah, it's Josh Allen. Just because, we talked about, I think a couple of narratives for me, for him is I think we're seeing obviously, we see what Lamar Jackson did last night, and I think there's obviously still, the MVP. I know it's supposed to be only regular season, but I just think, right, when you're in those spots, you obviously you want to win the game, but you also want to try to make sure you're establishing and proving a point. And like I said, man, the Broncos secondary minus Patrick Surtain, they've gotten ripped up all year long. And I just think this just fits so well into a position for Josh Allen to go out and, have a big game at home in a game that, I think, obviously there's only 3 games on the slate. I think this game has the potential to be, a low-key shootout. So I like Josh Allen a lot on DraftKings, and I'm following that up on FanDuel by playing Bo Nix because, again, I think that game could be a low-key shootout, and that's a very contrarian play because a lot of the field is obviously you have Jalen Hurts on this slate and you have Josh Allen on this slate, and I think we don't mind Jalen Hurts just because we know what it's going to be now. We know I expect him to be a little bit more mobile than he normally has been all year long. My other play that I'm playing on both slates with a lot of confidence is Jalen McMillan, playing him. Obviously, like I said, I think just the narrative and just the history with Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore really makes me lean into the Jalen McMillan play, who's been outstanding essentially in the Chris Godwin role. It might even be a situation where we don't call it the Chris Godwin role anymore. It might be the Jalen McMillan role in this offense. So there's that. And then one of the other places that I called out, and I'm splitting the difference between the two of them, is Marvin Mims and Devon Vell.
Devon Vell, he said. Look, Devon Bailey.
So Vele is going to kick it like Pele today against the Bills. Just because, like I said, man, they've been a little bit vulnerable in relation to the slot receiver position. So those are my plays that I'm looking at, and that's kind of the reason why. And then we obviously just got done talking about TJ Hawkinson. It sucks because I believe on FanDuel he's the highest price tight end. I'm playing in that 4-game window, not just the slate for today. So that's my logic behind that. But for the slate for today at tight end, it's thin, and I ended up going.
Dallas Goedert?
No, I tried. I tried. Well, you know me, but again, I have to keep you on your toes here. No, you're right. No, Dallas Goedert is actually my play at tight end. So we'll go back. We'll go back. We'll do it. We'll do it again. So yeah. Okay. So those are some of my takes, and I know I'm continuing to rant, but OZ for Washington. Again, 61% of the time, this guy's been running routes. So, he is de facto number 2 wide receiver for that team. And then Zach Ertz, who finished the year as a tight end 1, tight end 11. So, yeah, that's what I got.
All right. Sounds good to me. The only thing I'll also say is that, like, when it comes to, I just think someone in this mid-tier 5K is going to win you a lot of money. Whether that be Jaden Reed, Devontae Smith, like McMillan, maybe Marvin Mims. You know what I'm saying? One of those guys is going to have to, maybe I'll even put Marty Cooper in, because you just never know how Buffalo is going to come out and deploy their offense, but that's ultimate GPP play, like ultimate. But I do think one of those guys are going to come up big, Devontae Smith or Jaden Reed, because we could be wrong on the Green Bay Philadelphia read, where it could be like one of those sloth type of games. But then, like I said, the offenses both have opportunities to all of a sudden kick it in overdrive, and then they want to throw the football everywhere. So we've been fooled before.
Yeah, we have been.
We've been fooled before. All right, so funner question: who's going to be top scorer of the slate? No matter.
Just a Sunday slate.
3-game Sunday slate, yeah.
3-game Sunday slate. Let me see here. I will go with. Oh no, I'm not trying to add. I guess I'm gonna go. I think I'll go Josh Allen, man. I'll go Josh Allen. I just think, man, like, as much as it, I think we're here. I think we're here with him. And I think, like, this is the spot for him. And again, I keep harping on this matchup and the secondary for the Broncos. And I know there was a point in time in the year that we all viewed this defense as really good. And I think, like, they still have their moments, but that's one of the things when you're an elite corner, man. The rest of the guys get work, and I think that they know. At least, maybe this is just one man's opinion. I think I might have to hashtag that, just one man's opinion. But I think, like, again, the Bills in what they do offensively, in the way that they're designed, it is who is open, not get the ball to. And I think that's the biggest difference, like, with the Buffalo Bills now is that right there. And I think if you also want to get in a situation where if you can get up and now you have to put all this pressure on the rookie quarterback to go do these things, and you don't put the ball's not in Sean Payton's hands to control the game the way that he needs to, right? I think that right there is if I'm the Buffalo Bills, like, that absolutely is my game plan right there, which I think it's kind of redundant, right, to get as many points as you can. But I just think schematically, we talked about it, like the run game, for those guys, like, there's no de facto alpha in that group. There's nobody that you're like, oh shit, like, that's who we got to watch out for. It's more about play calling and play design for the Broncos. So, like I said, Josh Allen, man, like, watch him fucking come out and score 16 points today.
It's Saquon for me. Like I'm saying, give me Saquon. Like, it's an easy one, obviously. Copping out a little bit, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you are. You are. I was expecting more from you. I was expecting more from you.
It's our guy, yo. I cannot.
Bro, he's in every he's in every lineup that I have, right? Like, he's in every lineup that I have. You know what I mean? So, like, what are we doing?
I mean, like, okay. All right. I'll go different. I'll go Bucky Irving.
Okay. Right.
The advantage, the matchup is too juicy there. He'll beat the price of 7K. Will he give us 35 today? Will he give us 40 potentially?
Ooh, shit now.
I know. That's what it takes. That's what it takes to be number one scorer. Number one scorer on the slate. I'm just saying. Bucky Irving has.
Yeah, he's got that potential, no doubt.
He's got it. So it's possible where it's like we could just be reading the situation all differently. It depends on how things run, because Bucky Irving could get 2 of those touchdowns, could get 125 yards on the ground. Like, it's definitely within the range of outcome. So I'll say Bucky Irving to be different. Obviously, I said Barkley first. So
he's our cover boy, for God's sake.
But Josh Allen and Barkley both struggle. I said Bucky Irving.
He's our cover boy, of course. Like, and everybody knows. Like, that's probably the one thing like we all do is just get in here like, let me tell you about how great Saquon is. Let me tell you about the fact we told you to pick Saquon.
The only reason why we can say that we were on it before week 0 as well.
Yeah.
So we were on this before that.
Yeah.
So
like I don't like
the cues. Oh, so.
No, I don't even like. Listen, I don't even have.
You don't know football.
Like, I don't even want that. I don't even want that. You know why? Because guess what? If you trying to give me smoke for that, you should have been paying attention to my shit. There you go. That's it.
Right. Well, not your actual shit, right?
Oh man.
Pay attention.
Love it.
Well, any final thoughts before we let the boys and girls go?
No final thoughts, man. Just hey man, sit back and enjoy this weekend. Obviously, a little bit different than what we've been accustomed to for the last 18 weeks. And our endorphins being completely overstimulated by watching multiple screens in multiple games.
That's where it slows down, right?
Yeah, get to slow it down a little bit. So I would definitely say, especially that Philadelphia Green Bay game, because I think that might have a really quick game time if they run the ball as much as we think it will. But again, like we gave you guys like some really good prompts today. I think Nick and I both feel really confident about the prompts that we've landed on and the suggestions that we've hit on in regards to, your DFS lineups today. But, obviously, hey, man, your ball, your court, do what you got to do. But I think we got some good stuff for people out here today.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. Doubling down on that. Next show we have for you, we'll have a schedule, time and day for it. But the next show we'll have is the fantasy football season recap. We go over all the, our makes and our strikeouts, our players that we were on for process and how we need to adjust for that and what things we can look forward to in terms of changing our processes, in terms of we identified this and how it could happen. And that's going to happen every season. So we look forward to that for the next show we have here. Like we said before, if you ain't following us on X, please do so on the tags below. Overall, and again, just going back to this, we're gonna have some interviews in terms of get special guest spots on here and stuff like that, and we'll have everyone out there tell in terms of when we will showcase that at a later time. But that being said, we out of here. We'll see you guys next week. We'll be doing this one more time again. Peace.